Hey everyone, we're going to talk about learning preferences and format. And what's great about thinking about learning preferences is that I can ask you to think about yourself. You are my students, and I need to do my best to teach to all of you. And so taking a moment for you just to think about your preferences will help me teach you about the kinds of learning preferences you're going to experience among your own students. So grab a little piece of paper for a minute and think about just jotting down which of these fits you. And in this set, you're going to choose one. And it's about sensory preferences, the way that you take in information. Do you like to learn visually? Would you prefer to talk, to be able to talk things through? That's an auditory learner. They also like to hear things, but often auditory learners like to speak as well. Or are you more kinesthetic? You need to have that muscle memory to learn. Or are you tactile? You need to touch it and manipulate it yourself. Usually you like to actually have the materials from whatever you're working with to learn. Choose one of those and write it on this slip of paper, please. All right, now think about how you like to organize information. Do you prefer that it's very concrete, or do you tend to be an abstract person? You're able to think in metaphors and larger concepts that maybe can't be nailed down. Choose between concrete or abstract. Which one fits you better? And then choose, would you rather have things in a really sequential order, or can you handle information that's presented randomly? Last choice there. Would you like information presented on the whole or big picture first and then details? Or would you rather that we start with the details and eventually when we pull back far enough that you understand the whole picture, then we label it? That last one, if you're someone who does jigsaw puzzles, the whole to part people absolutely have to have the picture of the puzzle before they can start pulling apart the pieces. The part to whole folks, you don't really care what the picture is right off. You know that the first thing you do is find all the edges. So that's kind of a silly little home test for whether you appreciate whole to part or part to whole. Next one, personality preferences, the way that you get your energy and the way you make decisions. Are you an extrovert, meaning you get your energy from being around other people, or are you more on the introverted side? You expend energy when you're with other people socially and then need that regroup time to re-energize. Do you make decisions based on just gut level reactions? You just tend to know. You just understand situations and know what needs to be done. Or are you someone who likes to really look at the data? Are you going to build a pros and cons list? And lastly, do you tend to favor emotional kinds of information? You appreciate things that are presented in more of an emotional way or explain the feelings and the people involved? Or are you someone who prefers it when we discuss concepts in a very logical way, kind of leave the people out of it and just get to the point? Make a choice between those, please. And then lastly, the work of Howard Gardner and multiple intelligence. He states that people have, or his theory suggests that people have intelligences or gifts towards learning in different manners. Some people are more verbal linguistic or more logical mathematical. All of the list there should be things you're familiar with already. And Howard Gardner says that we have ways where we learn that line up with these that make learning a little more fun or a little more palatable and maybe more efficient. All right, Bernice McCarthy, who I believe is at the University of Illinois, maybe Northern Illinois. I'm not sure. If you Google her, you will find her. She is alive and well and teaching and continuing with her format work. She is an educator who took all of this learning theory, learning preference, personality research, social theory. She pulled it all together. Sorry for the extra parentheses there. But she took the work of all of those researchers and said, okay, I need a practical way to apply this to my classroom. If indeed All learners have all of these varied preferences, and you can probably agree with me that there's no way that any of you have the exact same learning profile that you just wrote on your piece of paper as someone else in our class. We have infinite numbers of combinations, and more than likely students don't have the exact same learning profile as other students in your classroom. So Bernice said, how do I go about benefiting learners from this information? Great that I know this about them, but how do I intentionally reach more kids? And I love that premise. It's clear that she's an educator, because we tend to have that practical bent of, okay, great, tell me what I can do with this. How do I make this make a difference for kids? And in asking that question, she designed a model called the format model, or she uses a format wheel, which I'm about to show you, that allows us to think about the way we present instruction, think about the different learners in our classroom, and also think about how we assess them in ways that allow us to meet their natural preferences. So here's the cycle of learning as she has it in the format system. And she says that, let me sneak back, sorry. She says that learning happens on two different continuums. One is the people who prefer action over reflection, or reflection over action. There's a continuum there. And also the people who prefer concrete experience versus thinking about things, conceptualizing. And so within that, we get this wheel of information and ways of thinking. If you Google format system, you will go to the aboutlearning.com, I believe, maybe it's .org, website, and they will have even more information for you about format and how it works. But this is what the format wheel is, and I'm going to give you a little more detail here. One thing to note, they do have a right and left side to each of these. Personally, I don't give a lot of credence to the right and left brain concept anymore. Most people have understood that to be more of a metaphor than a reality. We all do use our full brains in learning. And so that right and left brain side of it is at least questioned. So just know that piece of format in the way it's laid out here is not as useful, I don't think, as just simply the 4 quadrants of this wheel, which I'm about to tell you more about. All right, so we have 3 uses for the format system. The first one I want to talk to you about is for defining learners. And Bernice says that you're going to have basically 4 types of learners in your classroom based on all that information we know about personality and preferences and learning styles. So she says that you will have a learner 1 who is a meaning-centered learner, the kid who needs to know, why do I need to know this? They want learning in context, and they want it specific to themselves. It needs to be somewhat personalized. Why should I care? The second learner really is the most willing student. They don't need a why or a how. They just tell me what I need to know. These tend to be students who go very far in academia, and oftentimes they become teachers and professors because they value the content itself. They just want to know, what is it that I need to learn? Just give it to me straight up. Learner 3 is the student who is very skill focused. They want to know, how do I use what you're teaching me? Whatever it is, I'm applying it all the time. I'm thinking about, what would I do with this? How would I make that happen? And so they really want to play with things and practice and try things out. Learner 4 is the student who doesn't think like the rest of the class. This is the child who is varying the information right from the beginning. They start asking, well, what if? Well, what if? What if? Questions all along the way while you're teaching. And they're extending and varying, modifying the information to different and new concepts or new contexts. They're the child who is really thinking outside of the box. Bernice McCarthy says you have these learners in your classroom, groups of them even. The students who really need to know, how do I fit in the content? Oh gosh. The student who says, where do I fit in the content? The student who says, just give it to me, let me learn it as quickly as possible. The student who needs to get their hands on it and try it and see and learn for themselves. And the student who always sees things from a slightly different perspective. They're always thinking about something just a little bit differently than the rest of us and coming up with really new and interesting ideas or variations on the content we're teaching. How do you teach to all of these kids? Bernice says that they're in your classroom, you have a responsibility to them, and you need to make sure that you're teaching. She's got a few ideas. She says that when designing instruction, which is our second use for the format system, she says that you should start with step one and answer the questions of that meaning-based student. Why do we care about this? Why do we need to know what we're learning? So explain to those students the why of what's happening in the classroom. And then go on to the what, teach the concept. Then let them practice with it, let them play with it, teach the how. And lastly, vary it. Let them think about what if scenarios. How might it be if the information were different? In math, how might the math rule change? Does it work another way? This is the structure she suggests. And that format wheel we looked at the beginning is a way of following through 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is a fraction lesson here, but following through 1, 2, 3, and 4 steps of the lesson will make sure that you're hitting the needs of all of those different learners. In the Madeline Hunter lesson plan that we've been working with, if you follow through the format model, you answer that why question, usually in your anticipatory set and your objective, making sure you're establishing that there's some relevance to what's happening. The what learner gets it in that input section. The how learner gets it in the guided practice and independent practice. And it's the if learner that often gets missed in the Hunter model. So making sure that once the concepts are solid, so 1 through 3 are good, then we can explore some of the variations and the going beyond. Oops, sorry, sliding around here on my presentation. Let's go here. So hopefully you're asking, what's the third use then of the format system? And it's for designing assessments. So, oh gosh, designing assessments, making sure that some of your assessments, if you're allowed to make options, have some meaning-centered tasks. So having a student, maybe you're studying the Civil War, and having a student be able to write a journal about what it would have been like to be a part of the Civil War. So they put themselves into that and write a journal for you explaining events of the Civil War from their personal perspective. The concept-centered learner, or learner 2, they're going to want to just take a test, take a quiz, make a presentation for you. They want things that have right or wrong answers. This is classic student stuff. So good, make those options for them in assessment. The learner 3 is going to want an option that allows them to demonstrate something for you. They're going to want to build a model, do a test, try to, for the Civil War, they might create models of some of the battles. They would want to get their hands dirty and work out some of the learning in really concrete, hands-on ways. Learner 4 is going to want to do something of their own design. What's awesome about this style of learner is that you usually can't construct an assessment for them. They need to be able to tell you what they want to do. So when I give assessment options, one of the things I always do is say, and if you have a better idea, come and let me know and we'll negotiate. Because giving students the option to create their own assessments, to meet to meet the learning targets that you've decided through their own means, is the best way to get at that if learner who really wants to extend and create something new. So those are some ideas about the format system. If you have questions, please let me know.